Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Corlin, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl.
Welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. We are really excited to be here today because we have the trio back together.
Yay.
Jamie, it's so good to see your beautiful face today.
Yay.
We are back in action, and today we are going to talk about a really important topic. Before we jump in, just remember you can watch us on YouTube, Lead Like a Girl Lab on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And we are revamping our website. So you'll be able to get all of your Lead Like a Girl swag at leadlikeagirllab.com. So that will be up and going pretty soon here. So thank you very much for tuning in. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to talk about and also give us some feedback on previous episodes. So Corlin, let's jump right in and let's talk a little bit about the inspiration for this particular conversation today.
Yeah, I think, we were just talking about what is it do you think that would be a timely conversation? And I think, I don't want to spill the beans on Jamie's life over the last couple months, but I think that talking about anxiety, stress is something that we as women leaders are always dealing with and need to manage well because the old adage, if mommy ain't happy, nobody's happy. I think that if we can't manage our stress level and our anxiety when we feel that well, then our ships are going to get derailed quickly. And everybody knows it. When I am feeling stressed, when I am, feeling a little anxious, I don't hide it well. I wear that right on my sleeve and, and it's like, okay, what do we need to do? So I think it's really timely conversation to talk about.
Absolutely. And listen, I flip tables. That's just kind of what, like seriously, like sometimes literally. But it is, I think you're right. And I want to really just start off by when you think about how you define anxiety. So, I'm looking here, I got some notes. So I think about anxiety just being first and foremost natural. And I want to really call that out because I think that we need to talk about it more. We need to share more. And it really is a natural response to stress, right? So what does it look like? Well, feelings of worry or nervousness and fear of what's to come. And it really just kind of takes over and interferes with life. So I want to, how do you guys, that's just kind of like how I feel when I think about anxiety. What do you guys think?
I had anxiety about this episode.
There you go.
It's been it's been a minute since I've been on here on our podcast. And I listened to two different podcasts on anxiety today, read several articles, and then watched several videos to prepare for this.
Wow.
One of the things
I know I should just shut up now then, Jamie.
But I'm just going to say one thing. It was described, they talked about situational anxiety, and they said, okay, we're driving down the road. Me and you were having this conversation. All of a sudden, a huge semi-truck pulls into my lane. I have to freak out. I have to stop. I have to do, my brain says, oh my God, stop talking because you have to fight or flight, I guess, is probably the thing.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with this situation. And so they
Mhm.
describe that as like, that's good anxiety. Like, that's like, you should be sweating right now. You should be like, okay. And then when it's all calmed down, you and your friend, or we can continue on our conversation. And then they said that versus like the kind of like, we'll say the unhealthy version of anxiety. You're in your kitchen making coffee in the morning and it's time to get started for your day. And all of a sudden you have this feeling of dread, or you have this feeling of super anxiousness, or you have this the pit of your stomach is upset and you really don't know why. So that explanation to me made a lot of sense. And what you just said, Jessica, like it's natural. And actually some anxiety is very much healthy. But when it's not healthy, it's when it's like, oh, okay, because we all go through stress. But when
Yeah.
it's not healthy, when you're anxious for some reason that you don't even know why, that's where that's the problem, or that can be a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I read something that a while back that said that women are like twice as likely to suffer from anxiety than men.
Oh,
Mm.
I have a stat. one out of
Yeah.
three people who are aged 13 to 18 have anxiety issues, and it's much more common for a female than a male.
Mm.
Yeah, that
One out of
age group
three.
was scary.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. I
What's
think
your
that age
definition,
group
Core?
is kind of,
Well, I think that it's probably a compilation of everything that you've said, but I think one of the things that I feel like when I think of if I feel anxiety or I feel stress, I would use those words in different context. I think that when I feel anxious, and I actually don't like to use that word very often, because I feel personally the definition when I feel anxious is like it's just an overall feeling. I feel like I don't have control, and I feel like I can't pinpoint why I feel that. I just feel unsettled. And it, even just thinking about those things, it makes me get a little like, ugh, where I feel like stress, it seems like it's because of a particular event or a reason. Like, I'm stressed because I know I have to do 10 things in the next 3 hours, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the stress can cause anxiety, I think.
Yeah.
But it might not be the other way around. That I
yeah.
think
Well,
that
I want to go
that
back to
I
something
can.
Jamie said.
I think stress seems like it's more solvable versus, I don't know.
I wanted to go back to
Well, they
something
probably
that
feel the same
Jamie.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to something that Jamie said, which was, I think you said it like fight or flight. And I think what happens is that when anxiety kind of activates in the body, and remember, this is kind of how naturally we are made. That is what our body is made to do, and that's why I think that's a great way to describe it, because that's what's actually happening. It activates something in your body, in your brain, that is fight or flight. That's the response. And given the fact that we have those survival mechanisms, that kind of has, then what happens is we're facing the stress and the heart rate and the worrying and the fatigue and all of those other things that you're talking about, Corlin. So I think that is what's happening. But I think it's important that we talk about it, because just like you said, even talking about it is something we don't do. And I think we're doing better in this generation than we have before, because you'll hear a lot of people say, I suffer from anxiety. I don't know how I feel about that. What do you guys think?
I don't know how I feel.
I don't like that sentence. oh, my daughter suffers from anxiety. I suffer from anxiety. What do you guys think about that statement?
I don't like the word suffer in that sentence, because I think that in the right context, like we had mentioned, some anxiety is natural and it's probably good for you. I read something that said the reason you have a stomach ache when you feel anxious is because your body goes, I don't need to use any resources to digest this turkey sandwich right now. I need to use all my resources to figure out what to do in this like stressful situation. So
Yes.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of biological things that have to do with that. I don't like the word suffer. I don't think in general, just because I do feel like with if you are able to reach out to like the resources that you may or may not have, your tribe, for example, maybe it's your church, maybe it's your doctor, maybe it's a psychiatrist, whatever. There was a resource. If you're able to reach out to some resources, I think that most things can be, I'm not going to like go as far as to say manageable, but maybe can be improved. So I don't like that sentence a lot either. But I do think that you're right. Like, we have to talk about it. Like, we have to recognize that there are a lot of people who feel that way and probably years ago didn't understand what that was. You know?
Yeah.
I remember my mom always saying she would have a panic attack. And I remember my grandma took nerve pills, whatever nerve pills are.
That sounds aggressive.
Doesn't it? Nerve pills.
But
it's like,
I might need one of those, Grandma.
You know, but I'm like,
right. I was going to say,
these feelings,
your grandma was getting
like,
high,
happening
Jamie.
to your body's been around forever and ever and ever. Now, finally, like, you do.
You know, and I think when I was preparing for this episode and thinking about where do I feel anxious or stressed the most, and I feel like that feeling is most prevalent when things are happening that I can't control. Things are happening to me or around me, and I don't have a solution and I can't act on something. So I kind of feel a little helpless, a little just lacking direction, lacking an ability to take action. And I feel that's when I feel the most stressed or anxious, when I just am like,
like, what's a situation?
I don't know what to do.
But what is it usually about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
An example.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is it usually about? Is there a common theme when those feelings settle in for you?
I would say when I'm lacking control or direction with my trying to probably control things I probably can't control to begin with, is, let's be honest, I think, you know, things that my son does or doesn't do, things that my coworkers do or don't do, you know, and I think that the being anxious about the lack of control, it usually stems from like things I'm trying to control that I don't have my hands on, or that I can't put my hands on readily, right?
Yeah, I think for me, so when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about when can I say that feeling was the worst for me? And so maybe it is the not control, but it's the fear of the unknown. So a time where I felt the most anxious, I think, is when I had to start my career over. And that feeling was just not knowing what the direction was, not knowing, you know, where I would end up or how I would get to the other side, and just worried about the unknown.
Well, you didn't have a safety net. You didn't have the safety net of Mark and Paul, for example. You are literally out on your own now, and you hadn't been for how many years? 20 years. You had a safety net of like these mentors, and then now you're like, okay, now I'm on my own.
Yeah, like out in the middle of the desert with maybe no water. So yeah, I think that was probably what came to mind. I mean, when you think about your life, where would you say were those moments that you would say you were most anxious?
I think when you started talking about those things, I think I can think of a couple different ones, but one specifically that happened probably in the last couple of years is, as females, we go in and we have our yearly mammograms. And I had a scan that came back that
Get your
wasn't
mammograms, by the
clear.
way, October,
Correct.
women's,
Correct.
breast cancer awareness.
And colonoscopy, do that too.
Right. All the things. PSA real
Yes,
quick.
please.
Get your screenings done.
Yes.
But you go into the doctor and you're just assuming everything's been normal. And when you get the screen back that everything is not normal, you have a waiting period so they can do further scans. And so I had to wait, I don't know, it was probably like a few days or something like that. But during that time, every horrible bad case scenario is playing through my head. So somebody, you just go straight to crazy town. Like, clearly this is going to be cancer, the worst type of cancer. I'm going to how are my family going to survive without me? Like, all those different things. And I feel like, and again, high anxiety, high stress for something that I absolutely cannot control.
Yeah.
And so it just, so I feel like, to your point, it's just like, and it's uncharted territory. I've never been through this before. Never have, had this happen where you have so much value put in your future. And so like this wasn't a part of the plan that I had designed. This is not a part of what I've thought that my life would look like, and the end of the story is that everything is fine. I didn't have a diagnosis like that at all, but it was just, it forces you to think about those things, in my opinion. And sometimes your mind just goes to an unhealthy zone.
Yeah. So it's more situational for you as opposed to someone who says, and I'm going to go back to that, I suffer from anxiety. And the reason why I say, and this is just my opinion, this is not judgment on anyone, I don't like the I suffer from, because I always say, don't claim something over your life, right? I'm not saying it's not real, because it is very real. I want to say that, but don't claim something over your life that you have this thing and you are different. And you know what I mean? Like this is why we need to talk about it, because I don't think it's something that individuals suffer from. I think it's part of life. If that's the case, everyone suffers from it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel, because this happens to me all the time. I don't think when I think of it as my worst, I think of that time in my life. But is it just me, or do you guys wake up sometimes and it's like there's just this dark cloud there? Like nothing happened. I'm not like, there's not a specific situation. There's just this dark cloud over my head. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's called the 3 days before I get my period. Every month. If I'm being completely honest.
If I'm really that's good. That's good. That's good.
That's good.
12 times a year, baby.
Right, I was about to say, I'm too old for that shit course.
Yeah.
So I'm playing.
I feel like my experience is more like they're not literally. There is a dark cloud above my head, and it's more like the reactive. Like, because when we talked about this subject, I don't know that I've ever had. I definitely know I've never had a panic attack that I know of, and I don't necessarily have a lot of anxiety. However, I've noticed and I know this is a little bit off of our topic, but I have noticed stress, because I always used to say stress is a choice and I choose not to be stressed, which is like ridiculous.
Yeah, I get it.
I have found that if you don't deal with whatever it is, let's say it's anxiety, let's say it's stress, let's say it's whatever, when you just kind of push it down, which I do, I'm completely guilty of, it's coming out somewhere.
Yeah.
It's coming out. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, not to be gross, but I've had a very stressful few months, and all of a sudden I have eczema, and I'm like, why do I have eczema right now? Like what? And then I started looking into it and researching it a little bit, and it's like, yeah, it's stress induced. Like your body has to get this out. And for
Absolutely.
me, it's dry skin. I like,
Yeah. No,
but
I
whatever.
mean, you
Like
guys
it
know I break
has
out
to
in
happen.
hives.
And if you
Yeah.
don't, it's just, I think, recognizing that something's off and like I got to do something about it. I mean, maybe it is
Yeah.
talking, maybe it's whatever your specific remedy is, but I'm looking at it like I'm like confused. Why do I have these like, flaky red
Yeah.
patches of whatever on my body? Um, yeah, it's coming out. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
deal with
No.
it. You're gonna have to deal with it, or else your body's gonna say, "I'm dealing with it."
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes those are in those ways too, Jamie. I feel like it comes out in something that's temporary, like you're not going to have eczema forever. Let's hope for that. But I mean, statistics show that if you walk through life for long periods of time in stress and anxiety, you have high blood pressure.
Yes.
There's a
You
lot.
have it. There's a lot like creates, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but like inflammation. It's really hard on your body
Mm-hmm.
to walk through that space, and literally you will live a much shorter life if you can't get this dialed in, right? And I'm
Yes.
Yeah.
not trying to create more stress by saying that,
But
Yeah.
no, it's
but
it's true, and you're
Yeah.
exactly right, and it's that when I was watching some of those listening to some of those podcasts and watching, one of the things that like kept kind of in my mind kept bumping jumping out was kids, like kids being anxious or having anxiety,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some of the symptoms, it's like kids who and like you kind of said this a little, I think it was you, Corlin, that kind of alluded to this, where it's like you kind of want to stay where you're safe. You kind of want to stay in a place where like everything's going to be okay. If something bad happens, you're safe. And it brought into the fact of kids who like social anxiety, for example, kids who eat lunch with their teacher, or they just want to stay home. Or
Yeah.
I remember my daughters telling me that they used to eat lunch in the bathroom when they first started a new school. And I was like, seriously,
Yeah.
you ate lunch in the bathroom? But
Yeah.
it all kind of plays into like, where do you feel safe, where you're not going to get like, have like, get triggered, I guess would probably be the right word.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like where
And
do you
that,
feel, yeah, staying where you,
no, I was gonna say, I mean, the conversation about the kids, like, I mean, that we could probably do another episode just on that because that's a whole nother ball game. But, and I'm just gonna throw this out there because I'll get excited about talking about things that I've learned. But we don't realize that even that's why it's important when you are carrying children, even in your pregnancy. Like this is important because we don't realize what we're doing and what we're transferring in this type of stuff that we pass on to our children in our womb. I mean, it's real. But let me get back. I want to shift here before we run out of time to talk about two things. And one is um, being proactive, right? And then the second one is when we are there. It's like, okay, for whatever reason, this is where we're at. What do we do? How do we get back? Because I think what happens is if people don't know how to get back, they just stay in it way too long. So
mm-hmm.
how can we be proactive to get in front of this thing? What are some of the things that you guys have found that works for you in terms of being proactive?
I found that a lot of the suggestions for anxiety were similar to the suggestions of stress. And
Yep.
I got to tell you, one of the podcasts I listened to was called Anxiety Coaches, and she did an episode on self-care, which she has the most Midwestern voice. You should just listen to one episode just
she's
for
our
that.
people, Jamie.
She is our people. I wish I could do the voice. But I have to I gotta laugh about it because it's like, how do you do this? Okay, you get 8 hours of sleep every night, and you eat 3 great healthy meals every day. And then also you relax and you meditate, and then you read for
Who
your
has time for that stuff?
No shit. I was like, oh gosh, there were a couple other things on there where I was like, dude, you don't think I'm trying that? Do you not think I would
Yeah.
love to have 8 hours of sleep in a night? But those were the
So
suggestions.
I would say, I mean,
So
just
I'm
to add
like,
to that, Jamie, I think that like one of the things that we can do, because that is a very aspirational list, is one, I
Mhm.
think, like pick one. Like don't do all 5 or 7 of the things, but pick one.
like,
I am going to commit to eating 3 healthy meals a day. Like I can do that. But I have to meal prep, which maybe means I'm not sleeping like or whatever it is. But I think that
yeah,
if you
Yeah.
start where one with something small, like we all
Yeah.
know with goal setting, if you try to change your whole world, you're gonna fail.
that's
So I think
that's
that
a
like
nugget. That's great. That's exactly right,
Yeah.
Corlin.
right.
Yes,
So she
exactly.
probably has like really good advice, but you just gotta like pick a lane, man.
Take
Like
one, just take one. But that's exactly perfect, because it's like truly, I mean, I didn't even really think of it. I was just looking at the list like, what the what? I can't do all these.
what the
I'm
what?
already
The
trying
what?
to do all these things. What the what?
But I
You're right. Jamie's like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
out.
yeah,
right.
and
I'm
I
tapped
think
out.
too, like the other
I'm
part of
out.
that
I'm
though.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
not
But
happening.
I think the other part of that though too is that having having correct boundaries, and we've talked about this in other circumstances on other episodes, but if you give yourself permission to say no or not yet to some things, it opens up the ability to have the priorities for other things. So if you're feeling like you're heading that down that stressful lane or feeling you're getting anxiety, that there is something in your life that you could and probably should say no to, and giving yourself permission to say it's okay to not engage with that particular thing right now. You can save that for later or maybe not ever, but just having those, giving yourself some really good boundaries to help you recoup a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What do you think, Jess? Oh, wait, Jessica, you
Oh
did not
man.
say. I want to know your feelings. What's your, how do you get over it? Yep.
You're back. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think if you
Yeah, and you
feel,
think like we all know, like we are the best salespeople, and not just the three of us, but like women in general. So if you're staying inside your head and you are on some crazy track, you will convince yourself that this is whatever you're thinking the bad's going to happen. That is absolutely going to happen. Worst case scenario is coming, knocking
but
at
you
your
start
door.
thinking about it,
So
and
if
then you
you don't have somebody in that crazy town with you, it's just going to keep spiraling down to like just insane land.
well, it starts with a thought in your head, and then it's your voice, and then it's your actions. But I do think, I mean,
Yeah.
like worst case scenario, if you journal or something like that, if like you have the chance to write it all down, that may help
Hmm.
too. I am not good at that, but I do know a lot of people who journal, and they're like, I'm feeling a certain way, and if I can write it out, at least it's one way of getting it out. Maybe it's not getting any feedback from like a peer or a loved one
Mhm.
or a confidant, but that might be another option too. Just some other way to get it out, writing it down.
Right, right. And I
I I am so the I don't know why, but people do like to spill their guts to me, like upon, sometimes it's the first meeting, sometimes it's later, but I actually have like an inside joke with a couple of people where I'm like, yeah, I met her for the first time and I know every single thing about her husband and children and job, and I don't know why that is. But I'm going to take it. Maybe that's my gift. I don't know. But it does save me from from I don't like to talk about stuff. You guys know this. I like to keep things inside, and it's why I have eczema. And so
That's why I'm all itchy.
I don't walk away from the crazy girl. I do listen to the craziness and I take it all in.
And
And
I think too, I will
that
just
is
add to
also why I have
that
eczema. If
as
everyone
something,
else.
another tip or trick that you can do. No, but I would also add that I think that sometimes when we are feeling stressed or anxious, like we've talked about it, it's a lot of times it's over a specific thing or a specific event or whatever. But I think that sometimes what I do is I'll just redirect and I will pour into something that's easy, manageable, and gives me a lot of joy. So whether
Yeah.
it's a hobby, like I
Yes.
get out in, like I've been trying to be a landscaper, not as good as Jamie, but I've been trying to do my yard. Like this is manageable. Like I can
Mhm.
do this,
You can
or I'll
control it.
go like, yeah, or like I'll go in like I can't. My life is chaos. I know, but when I'm done, man, that project, like my cupboards will be so organized, or like I'll go for, or whatever I'm doing. Like I'll give myself, okay, I can do this one thing and I'm going to win at it, get my little dopamine fix.
Good.
And okay, like what else
Good.
do we do? But I think that's what you have to do. You got to pick something you can win at and give your, like, if you can't, if you're not getting joy external, like you got to create your own joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I love that too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.